With practice and qualifying canceled due to rain, Brian and I are here to get you set for the race in New Hampshire. What is this race called, Brian? The USA Today 301, sponsored by
Yes, sir.
newspapers. Who knew they could do it? We'll talk about the DraftKings picks that need to be in your lineup, the guys you should be fading, and what the running order looks like, and how we're approaching it since we didn't get qualifying and or practice. And we'll look at the updated betting odds before we get out of here. All of that and more in today's Angle Up Pursuit podcast.
Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack.
Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Coming to you live from Jimmy Buffett's cabin, it's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's going on, Kyle? You sure as hell bet your ass I am. I'm all the way up here in the great Northeast in New Hampshire. I was at the track earlier today. The rain was definitely not as bad as what it seemed as if it was, with qualifying getting canceled and then us only getting six laps of practice. But, sure enough, Mother Nature says F you to the Cup Series and then allows for the entirety of the Xfinity race to get in, just screwing with bettors that mainly focus on Cup.
Yeah. Just an FYI, they moved up the race for Sunday. Yep. It was going to be 2:35 Eastern. It's now 2:06 Eastern. So make sure you have your lineup set. Make sure you have your bets in. Make sure you have everything in place to be ready for the race. Brian, I did want to, before we dive into this week's race, I wanted to, were you there for the Christopher Bell famous interview at this point? And it sure seems like Chase Briscoe is about to be the number 19 car.
Yeah, I was not actually there for that. Many drivers were asked about it today in the media center. They even asked Chase Briscoe about it. And, he was saying that it's, now that the cat's kind of out of the bag, that obviously that's what's happening. It was interesting to learn, though, that I guess Kyle Larson made mention and made it seem as if Christopher Bell was referring to Chase Elliott and made a joke.
He was trying to be a funny guy on Twitter.
Yeah, so there was a lot of joking about it going on in the media center and from a lot of the drivers. And you got to feel for Christopher Bell for accidentally slipping with that news, which is it's going to have a pretty big effect on what the driver situation is, silly season and all that. And then also too, when you piggyback that off the fact that Haas Racing came out and said they're going to run a single car team next year, who's going to be the guy that gets that single car spot when you have Josh Berry, Noah Gragson, and Ryan Preece all still with the team without rides for the next year?
Sure feels like Noah's going to be the guy, with Preece probably going to Xfinity with Haas, but
I will say, so they're interesting. Josh Berry was speaking in the center, and he made a very telling comment of they weren't really aware of the team's plans to maintain a single car. And so he made it sound as if, he's not the guy, or he wasn't in the plans for that position.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Gragson, especially with the fact that seats are opening up, and we've always rumored Gragson here and Gragson there, and he's never really landed any of them or really been in the conversation. That would be my guess. Especially if you're going to run on one car, you want to align with a younger driver who may be able to vault and become stronger, but maybe it ends up being something like somebody completely we're not even guessing, and Gragson ends up somewhere else anyways.
Well, part of me also thinks what if Josh Berry just transitions over to Front Row Motorsports?
Yeah.
I think that would be a really good fit for him. It'd be almost an improvement. I think at this point you can kind of say that Front Row has been running a little bit better than what Stuart Haas has. So, I think he's probably destined for another Ford ride. I don't really see any other spots opening up with the other manufacturers outside of, the talk about 2311, but there's already a lot of guys in that, ladder of drivers. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah. And I think like we talked about with Justin Haley and Rick Ware, kind of if Haas can focus all of their attention to one car, maybe that's going to be a good thing for them.
Yeah.
Especially if they don't have the Stewart part of that. But I also Oh, I was gonna ask you something. Oh, the Kyle Busch RCR stuff. There's he's sounds like he's trying to get out of it. Like I don't.
Yeah,
Is that a real thing or is that just like a us talking thing?
I don't know. I feel like that's just more scuttlebutt and, just people throwing rumors out there to see what will stick because, this is only his second year with the team. Obviously, there was a lot of change in the sport, the last couple of years with the next gen car, the new body styles for both Ford and Toyota, and Kyle jumping from a Toyota, which he ran for the vast majority of his career, into a Chevy. So, learning experience there. RCR had kind of been on the downswing before he got there anyways.
Yeah.
So like I don't necessarily think that he's looking to get out of that situation. I definitely think he's upset with the way that things have been going, but you give a driver like him another year, another full off season to get stuff going, and I think they'll turn it around. And especially too having this first full year of like, I would say that this is the learning year for Kyle Busch, and so he's had some really bad luck. I expect that to maybe turn around, and
I think RCR's is a dumpster fire, but maybe they'll figure it out. Okay, let's look at some DraftKings stuff. Um, let's talk about pricing and all that good stuff. Do you have like did you glean anything from the very very modified version of practice we got, or was it basically just like before anything could actually happen, it was shut down again?
So the fact that Carson Hocevar and Zane Smith wound up at the top of the board in 5 lap average, I think tells you everything you need to know about practice in that it meant
Is very very
nothing.
important, and you should
Yeah,
definitely take
yeah,
as much away from it as you can.
yeah, that it meant nothing. One thing that I did take away from a lot of the drivers in the media center is that it's apparent to everybody that Fords have definitely hit the mark on the short track this season. And something like I made it a point to ask Josh Berry about practice and qualifying, and if it were to get rained out completely, how comfortable they were coming in here, knowing that their manufacturer has been, probably the best in the sport on the track, and they've shown speed. And to a man, and of the other drivers that we asked about this, the Ford guys seem fairly confident that regardless of whether or not they get practice or qualifying, they're going to be pretty decent at these shorter flatters.
Yeah, and I think coming from a short flat last week at Iowa, I think having lots of experience at New Hampshire, like it's definitely a lot more comfortable than if we were going to Iowa and dealing with the situation, or we were
Exactly.
going to a track that we don't run quite as often, or quite as consistently, or if Ford wasn't trending, like they look like they were trending into like being a distant third in terms of manufacturers, and over the past couple weeks have really shown speed and shown like they're figuring stuff out, and maybe it's just they're getting good at the right time. We talked about how Chris Buescher got really hot around this time last year, so
Yep.
maybe Ford just has a really good idea of kind of how to set up this middle part of this track and a middle part of the season, and in the long term it actually doesn't really matter, but at least at this point we should be focusing more on Ford and less on kind of everybody else.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk pricing and let's go through it. So Christopher Bell starting fourth, 11K, won the Xfinity race today. Denny
From the
Hamlin,
back, from the back, essentially, mind you.
yeah. What do you know where Bowman finished?
I think he finished top 10.
Okay, because I know he
Yeah,
was like in
he's
the
like
back
right around
four.
eighth or so.
Yeah. Hamlin 14th, Martin Truex 7th, Ryan Blaney 2nd, Kyle Larson 19th. Now, once again, all of this is just set off of a formula. It's not set off of anything from the weekend. So it's kind of interesting to see how we're going to play this. I'm also curious, Brian, like, do we feel like there's going to be opportunity for passing and movement and all that stuff? Or, somebody like Christopher Bell, somebody like, we'll get to Chase Elliott, we'll get to William Byron, pretty locked into kind of the chunk of the grid they're in, and if so long as something terrible doesn't happen, we'll just kind of be following each other around the track most of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's yet to be seen here. I think not getting practice is really affecting whether or not, we can determine if we're going to see passing or not. Because, when you saw Phoenix earlier this year, it was clear who the top cars were early on in practice with the Toyotas. They seem to be the class of the field. And then like last week at Iowa with the 50-minute session, you got a chance to see who was good. And then during the race, there was passing, but there wasn't all like it was just an interesting dynamic of the weird tires and the setup and all that stuff. And now we're going to a track that these guys have all ran numerous times before, or the majority of them have, but they're in the setup that we ran at Iowa and I believe at Richmond or something earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
Drivers did say, so Joey Logano, he said that qualifying is extremely important at New Hampshire because you want the track position, because passing is difficult here. And if you can only be a 10th or 2/10 faster than somebody, you're not really going to be able to pass. So, I think it'll be a situation that we saw with like somebody like Christopher Bell, where there will be a handful of guys that are able to drive through the field and make passes, and everybody else will be stuck in a train.
Yeah, I also wonder if we see some pit shenanigans, taking two tires, trying to make decisions to either stay out or make some gambles. Especially if you're mid pack or back, you're going to be fighting to get to the front. So of the guys kind of 10K and above, I came into the week loving Larson, not so much Chevy and Hendrick as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Starting 19th, I think at 10K is really compelling. Obviously, Blaney looked like a rocket ship last week and was the winner. A lot of Truex hype. We could get a Marty Monday, maybe.
Let's hope not.
And then his teammates, Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell. So I guess of this range, who's jumping out to you as kind of your favorite options to target?
I got to be honest with you. I'm still kind of up in the air about who I like, because if you go based off of what we saw in Iowa, you can't do anything but like the Penske guys in Blaney and Logano, especially given the track position that they're going to have early on.
Yeah.
That said, with this not being the unknowns of an Iowa and being more familiar to these guys, I think there is a little more weight to be had with what we saw at Phoenix, for instance, where the JGR guys and Toyota was extremely strong. And, like last week, I think I overvalued that race going into Iowa. So a guy like Truex, he didn't really show that speed, but this is essentially Martin Truex Jr.'s home track. And he has the weight off his back of, he got his first win here last year. So he got that monkey out of the way. And he's made the announcement that he is retiring. And you can tell that there was a little bit of relief to him when he did do that, because Bob Pockers even asked him about how he seems to be more relaxed now that he's made that official. So I don't think you can come away with anything but thinking, Martin Truex Jr. starting 7th, he's starting near the front. He's going to be strong. I think it would be a mistake not to assume that.
I'm looking at iFantasy Races shorter, flatter speed rankings. Bell is number 1, even with a 9th at Iowa.
Oh yeah.
Blaney's number 2. Chase Elliott's number 3. Kyle Larson's 4. Byron's 5, which is kind of interesting considering how poor Byron, especially, and Hendrick kind of tends to do at this track. Truex, I think, is really compelling. I think you're onto something with the Fords, Blaney. What we saw last week, he's not somebody that my brain traditionally goes shorter, flatter, Blaney. But he was great at Iowa. He obviously won the championship at Phoenix. He's showed his speed at Phoenix, Gateway, and Iowa this year. He was kind of underwhelming at Richmond. And with the setup Ford seems to have had the past couple weeks, I'm pretty optimistic about him. So he might be somebody that I end up getting some exposure to. It's really, like you mentioned, it's kind of an interesting group, and obviously not getting practice and qualifying to kind of have the drivers give us a little more information to kind of separate this tier. It is a little bit challenging. Larson's probably going to be really popular, especially where he's starting. But if passing's hard, maybe it's going to be kind of more of a trap. So I think figuring out how you want to attack this range, I think you're going to have to make some decisions and build a few lineups accordingly. Okay, maybe Larson nails the setup, or maybe Fords are faster. It's a JGR race and get out of the way, and you kind of figure out how you want to attack it.
Yeah, I will say on Kyle Larson, we've made this mistake before, and we've mentioned it before, where we didn't think that he was going to be able to make passing when he started at the back at Bristol. So I don't even think that's part of the conversation with him, considering like last week too. I mean, he wrecked himself. We can start this argument again, but he did it to himself. But he was, if not the fastest, the second fastest car on track, and I don't expect anything different this weekend. And so I think Larson is somebody that you're going to have to consider, but then also consider the fact that he's probably going to be the most popular guy on the slate with him starting mid pack and having the possibility of winning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because, yeah, I think he's definitely the farthest back and the cheapest version, so he's easy to
Yep.
get to. But Hamlin's also really compelling. Obviously, he's more expensive, but if you think, you know, the Chevys are going to be kind of the third tier and it's really a Toyota race, maybe the Fords get mixed in. Hamlin's really compelling. Truex is really compelling. You know, I'm going to kind of keep an eye on the outright market to see
Yeah.
how stuff moves and who ends up taking money, and maybe that's a way to kind of figure out who might be good and who might be willing to be a little more overweight on, or maybe you use that as an excuse. Hey, you know, Truex is taking a lot of money or Hamlin's taking a lot of money. Let's find a way to kind of fade them a little bit and be a little different, because that's where the ownership will kind of coagulate.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's talk the 9K range. So Logano, starting 9,800, really compelling. William Byron, Chase Elliott, the Hendrick boys, starting first and third respectively, 95, 92. Brad K starting in the top 10 at 9K. Interesting range. Kind of front runner, lead laps, but also Keselowski and Logano, the vets, kind of second dominator potential. Are you getting to the Hendrick guys given their kind of up and down history here? Byron never finished in the top 20 here. I keep falling on that sword, but like he just doesn't do it. So like what's your thoughts on this range?
Yeah, I think from the Hendrick camp, like outside of Larson, obviously with him starting so far back, for me it's Chase Elliott over William Byron, just because he is the top HMS guy at this track historically. He's been running really well on short tracks too, and he's been able to avoid issues. I mean, the dude leads the NASCAR Cup Series in average finish. He's got a million top fives this year. They've just been safe. And I also think you have to account for the possibility that we get a range shortened race tomorrow where we only get to halfway and NASCAR calls it. And so with him starting on the pole, he could just maintain track position all day, and whether he's the best car or not, just be there at the end and say lead, 50, 60 laps and just basically back all the corners up and prevent anybody from getting around him and drive a little bit dirty to get that second win.
Yeah. Which somebody holding a 1.5 and a 2.5 on him in terms of the wins. I would not be upset if he found a way to get to victory lane, even though I am not holding a ticket. I will say last year he started 18th, finished 12th in a weird year. Years before that, he started second, finished second, started third, finished 18th, started third, finished 9th. And the year before that, started 12th, finished 29th. So interesting run for him here. Like obviously in terms of short flat this year, he's been awesome. He's been the third fastest, but and getting better. Phoenix, he was 11th. Richmond, he was 8th. Gateway, he was 10th, and then Iowa, he was 3rd. So, average speed ranking of 8. Really, really good to see him kind of moving in the right direction. Ahead of Larson, ahead of Byron, ahead of Reddick. So pretty impressive season and bounce back from what we kind of saw last year. Interesting Keselowski. I know we talked about him. You were in on him from an outright perspective. I joined you on that midweek. Obviously we didn't get to see, but if we like the Fords, we think he can be good with the tires. Obviously, you love the big paint scheme on his car this week. You love that red sock on there. It just does something for you. Any interest in old Brad this week?
Yeah, despite the fact he's rocking a Red Sox paint scheme, I can't help but think that he's going to be strong here, especially again, just similar conversation that we have with Chase Elliott. The fact that he's starting with good track position, he just has a knack for maintaining that and moving up through the field, and leave it to this team to take the risk and maybe go with a 2-tire stop with the anticipation of maybe the race getting postponed. This is the team that would do something like that. So obviously you can't ignore him. I did want to mention Joey Logano real quick. I mean, this is a championship pedigree driver, starting sixth, was really good at Richmond. They kind of missed a little bit last week, but with how strong Penske has looked the last couple of weeks, and this team still looking for their first win, sitting on over 1.5 wins. Obviously, I want him to get his first one soon, but yeah, like you got to know that they're sharing stuff. Him and Blaney, and even Cindric, who unloads well, but he sucks on Sundays. So I think Logano could be this week's Blaney in the sense that people just kind of glance over him, and then he winds up popping and being the race winner.
Yeah. I mean, definitely of the guys that we've talked about so far in terms of projected ownership, he's the guy that everyone seems to be kind of skipping over. What I'm looking at now, Logano is about 12%. Blaney and Byron are about 18%, and then everybody else is like 20 to 30. Like Bell would be 20%, and obviously this could change between now and race day, but he's definitely the leverage play in this range, and I think starting Blaney Logano is a fun way to start, especially if you think they can go kind of back to back and be really strong again. Maybe that's a big ask, but I think given what we saw last week, given the lack of practice and qualifying, and where they are starting on Sunday, I think they both make a ton of sense as kind of your early dominators, and then you kind of build from there. Let's talk 8Ks, where we have Tyler Reddick starting 12th, 8,800. In the immortal words of CJ from Grand Theft Auto, Brian is ready to be hurt again. Let's go. Ty Gibbs starting 18th, 8,700. Ross Chastain starting 8th. Chris Buescher starting 15th. And Alex Bowman starting 5th. And Josh Berry starting in the top 10. Weird range. A lot of these guys are starting probably farther forward than we would really like to see. I guess just wax poetic about Reddick, and then we'll go on to whoever else is tickling your fancy.
Yeah, so obviously Tyler Reddick for me early in the week, he was one of my favorite plays simply because of the fact that they've unloaded well at every short track. The results hadn't necessarily been there. I will say last week in Iowa, he was one of the unlucky drivers that got caught a lap down. Thanks a lot to the Watermelon Man for the second week in a row screwing me. But
how does he screw you this week? That's what I want to know.
Oh man, well, he did earn a little bit of respect back by saying he's a seeded watermelon eater, not seedless. So I love that. But I think Reddick was a lot better on the long run last week than we actually got to see, because he did get stuck a lap down. He had to work his way through the field. He still wound up with a top 15 run. But in this range, really interesting. I don't normally go with him. I actually faded him in a couple of matchups again this week, but I think Ty Gibbs is interesting starting 18th because them too, like they've been fast on short tracks. And if we are in a situation where we get a shortened race, this team will probably be trying to do everything possible to get the track position, to get to the front early, and then maybe sneak out a victory.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting because of all the names that you mentioned, Josh Berry might be the one to go to in terms of shorter, flatter speed. He was bad at Phoenix, but he was fast at Richmond, fast at Gateway, and really fast at Iowa. He was obviously able to make it stick last week. I love what is the final season of SHR on shorter, flatter, but shorter, flatter SHR has been, a really nice thing to kind of lean on.
Look, I didn't want to give away all the secrets here, but Josh Berry for me is one of my favorite drivers on the slate, and hitting the betting window post starting order.
Yeah, I think he. I think he might be a bet. It's funny too because we saw last week and what his numbers posted at, and where he's starting. I don't know. It all makes sense. I know interest in Bowman. I think Buescher's fine. I think Chastain is.
You cannot trust them right now
No.
they looked stronger last week, but until we see them run up front with legit top 5 speed, I don't know. They're just not a trustworthy garage right now.
Yeah, it's weird. They've had a weird season. Kyle, speaking of weird seasons, Kyle Busch starting 30th, 7,700. No, thank you.
He's
Bubba
with the
Wallace,
squirrels, and his nuts will be broken.
he's already mad. And he's already figuring out excuses for why he had a bad race. I can already hear him workshopping them in the background. So given that we were both saying this, he's going to probably win the damn thing, but
Yeah.
or finish like top 3 or something. Projections love him. Not a ton of ownership, but I just can't. I can't do it. I don't think it's going to be a good week for him. And he's a guy that always has issues here. It's his house of horrors. Whether it's a accident or car issue or whatever case may be. He finds a way to get into trouble and ends up, at finishing last or nearly last. Bubba Wallace, Noah Gragson, Chase Briscoe, Austin Cindric round out the 7K. Cindric and Briscoe feel like guys to, I don't want to say cross off because I don't want to cross off anybody, especially Chase Briscoe, who I tend to like, but he's so underwhelming and he's always annoying. And he even when he does well and qualifies strongly and looks good, he finds a way about midway just to either try too hard or get stuck or do something stupid or just be slow and kind of fade. So I'm going to tell myself I'm not clicking that name. I will probably end up clicking that name because I'm an idiot, but I recommend you avoid him. Gragson starting 21st, Bubba Wallace. Like this 7K green is really gross. I don't know that I want to click any of these names.
I think this might be the first week ever, but I'm a lot higher on Briscoe than you are this week, especially with them breaking the news that he's going to JGR at the end of the year and his future is set, and now he's not stressing out about when they're going to release that. It's all but set in stone and officially announced. So I think that takes a lot of pressure off of him because he's got a seat. Everybody knows about it now, and he can just go out and race. And one thing we've often talked about with Chase Briscoe is the potential on these shorter flat tracks. And, last week we were kind of high on him. A couple of weeks ago when we went to Gateway, we were high on him. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be a little optimistic about what he can show on Sunday when he's starting 23rd. He's got a decent starting spot. He's probably a top 15 car if he has a decent day, with the potential for a top 10 run. So 7,200, 23rd. He's probably my favorite guy in this range, to be honest.
Yeah, and maybe the fact that he's not near the front and worry about him kind of fading
Exactly.
is better. He's going to just move forward, figure it out, and maybe have it like a top 10 day and kind of be there. So I don't hate it. I was, I was ready to be out, but if you're going to drag me back into the mud, I'm here to do it.
Look, and then I did want to say, so in that range, to me, are the two most likely drivers to wreck out first. Kyle Busch at the top of the 7K and Austin Cindric at the bottom of the 7K. And that's a market first to retire. We've heard Wormy talk about it all the time. They need to open that market up at sportsbooks for NASCAR races because that would take in a ton of money.
Yeah. I like that a lot. And we didn't even mention Ricky Stenhouse, and he might be third or fourth in that group.
Well, with him starting 13th, yeah, I would definitely think so. He's going to get too aggressive and get moved out of the way.
Let's talk 6K. Suarez, McDowell, Priest, Gilliland, Hocevar, AJ, Austin Dillon, Justin Haley, Ricky Stenhouse. What a group. If we're gonna skip the 7K or kind of avoid it, maybe grab one name. That means we're gonna have to start diving in here. What are we doing? I honestly don't know.
I don't think there's a question about it going forward for the rest of the year. Justin Haley with RWR has clearly elevated that team, and we're really getting to see the type of driver that he is just because of how well he's able to manage his car. He's able to stay out of trouble. Even when he's running with the squirrels, he's able to protect his nuts. So, starting mid-pack, 6,100, this is a guy that last week was running inside the top 10, and I believe he had a pit road penalty that cost him a decent finishing result and a potential top 10 finish. So I don't expect anything less out of him. He's in a Ford. Yeah.
I mean, he's gonna be popular, but because of the way he's trending and how good he's been, I don't hate it, especially at 6,100. Like, it's not like you're
Exactly.
piling in on somebody who's 10-5, 11K. I don't hate it. If not Haley,
I'd probably go McDowell, honestly.
yeah, I like McDowell. I feel like he's always solid, and
Because he was a top 10 car last week in Iowa.
Mhm. Yeah.
Again, pit road penalty, speeding, whatever the hell it was, it knocked him out of contention for that. And so
He had a
starting
tire
25th,
issue.
6th,
Or was it the
700.
week before?
Well, no, I think he had a penalty and then he blew a tire.
That's right.
Yeah.
What a double whammy.
He had the Kyle Busch-esque weekend.
Yeah. That's what Kyle Busch is going to do this week. He's going to have a penalty on top of a shitty starting spot, and he's going to be like, can't do it anymore, guys. Going in the garage, and he'll just park it.
He's going to do the NASCAR Thunder and decide to drive backwards on the track.
We've all done it once or twice. The 5K range: Eric Jones, Ty Dillon, John Hunter, Corey LaJoy, Zane Smith, Harrison Burton, Daniel Hemrick, Kaz Gralla. It really feels like, we talked about it last week. It kind of feels like I mean, if you can figure out the name down here that's going to be good, then like more power to you. But it does feel more like a week to balance build and, maybe grab one of the expensive guys and then just kind of be in that like 7 to 8K range for the rest of your lineup.
Yeah, I don't have any trust in any of these dudes running back here.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they all suck. Just take the cheapest one and then hope you get lucky.
And just pray he finishes in his starting spot, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, they're all starting where they are starting for a reason.
Exactly.
Well, let's build some lineups and see how gross we have to get. We build 3 each and every week here. We'll use some kind of correlations and thought process there, and then we'll make it all work with everything. So, Brian Twining, you were at the track. You got to see these guys up close, even if they were just in the media center and sitting next to their cars. Who is the first guy you want to start our lineup with?
Let's make the Marty Party lineup.
Okay. Tyrone.
Yuck. All right, let's go down let's add Justin Haley here.
I like how I click Ty Gibbs and you say yuck, and then you say, you know what, Justin Haley. That's where I want to go.
I'm just not a Gibbs. I'm not a Gibbs fan. I told you. I faded him in matchups. I think he's going to do well. It's just hard for me to do anything that I want to like back him in.
Yeah, but like, you can fade him in matchups with your guy Reddick and hope Reddick gets like 3rd and Gibbs gets like 5th or 6th.
Yeah. All right. That's fine.
Interesting predicament. I kind of want to go Brad, but I'm wondering, like, do we want some exposure to Fords in most of our lineups? Do we want to kind of fade them and kind of see if that is the key?
Yeah, see, I don't think this is a week to fade Ford with how strong they've looked at the shorter flatters recently in particular.
I mean, we both really like Josh Berry, 8K.
All right. Look, if anybody is going to pitch strategy their way to the front because of history, like leave it to him and his team and his crew chief, who's done it multiple times with Kevin Harvick, who was really good here, by the way, to be able to do that. So starting 10th, you're saving a little bit of money. I don't hate it because I don't think he's going to be too heavily rostered either.
No one's going to be on him. Yeah, I think he's going to be just. It doesn't feel like a good click, but maybe that's why it's the right click.
I was just going to say, we say this every week. The ones that don't feel good, that go against your normal thinking process, are normally the ones that hit.
Yeah. The question is now, do we want to get like kind of gross so we can get a bet like a stud in, Bell, Hamlin, something.
Yeah, like
Larson.
I think you could put him in, and then we'll see what we can get.
Okay, so who's your favorite of this? Do you want to do the Larson thing? Do you want to do like a Hamlin to keep the Toyota theme going?
Honestly, I'd probably rather. I know it's riskier, but I think Bell is probably a better play than Denny.
Okay, I like that too because he could get to the front and dominate with Truex, and then you hope that Barry can come along as like a top 5 guy, and then Gibbs gets
Yeah.
there maybe towards stage 3, assuming we get there.
Yeah, exactly.
But that gets us down into the squirrel of all squirrels. So Ty Dillon, John Hunter, LaJoy, Zane Smith.
You should have had the random with fantasy football season coming up. We're gonna use a fantasy football thing. You should have had the random draft order machine up, and we could have put in their car numbers.
I mean, I can randomize here.
Had it pick who we're going with here.
Love it. Don't try this at home, folks. All right.
This is great.
Let's see, who's our options? Gralla, Hemrick, Burton, Smith.
And then LaJoy, JHN, and Ty Dillon. Please don't be Ty Dillon.
Randomize what, like 4 times? 5 times?
Yeah, just do 5 times real quick.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Corey LaJoy season is upon us.
Oh no. He's the one starting the furthest up too.
I know.
That is
And
brutal.
he's like sort of popular considering he's Corey LaJoy and where he's starting.
Hey, the randomizer picked him. We got to put him in there.
Can't. You got to put it in the hands of the DFS gods and let them decide. All right, Corey LaJoy, welcome to the squad. Starting 26. My God, he's been so bad.
Yeah, that's gross.
So bad. All right, we'll create another one.
Yeah, I think this one we gotta do the Larson thing.
So that's exactly what I was thinking.
And then maybe you back it up with Chase. So we have our early dominator, and then we have Larson who can make his way to the front.
I like it a lot. I like it a lot. Do we want to double chase?
Yeah, let's do it. I like that.
And then McDriver?
That somehow we were like telepathically speaking to each other.
Get out of my head.
Yeah.
All right, so now we can go up.
Yeah, I think we have to this has to be like the middling lineup because we got the 2 guys that we think are going to compete for the win.
Yeah, so the other option that we can do, if you want, and I know it's not the best, but Justin Haley.
Oh, that gets us to pretty much anybody.
Anybody.
All right. This is gross. It goes against my entire being, but I just have a feeling about the 22.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
do you want to do Cindric instead of Haley? I know.
Absolutely not. No way. Nope. Yeah, you didn't even have to finish that sentence. I knew exactly where you were going with that. I would rather sit on the sidelines to another Austin Cindric win than to spend any of my time and effort or money on supporting.
And do you want to upgrade from McDriver to, like, we could do like a Kyle Busch or Bubba Wallace? We could also upgrade from Briscoe to, what's he, 72 up to like a Bowman or a Barry.
I don't know. I like getting a little bit different because I think with us not getting practice, I think a week like this at a track where you would normally want to, utilize the vast majority of your salary because you know who's going to be good. We don't know that. There's a lot of new happening this weekend. New body styles, new tire setup for this racetrack. No practice, no qualifying. I don't think you have to, empty the bank here.
All right. Welcome to the lineup, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano.
Oh my gosh, we are destined to fail.
I mean, are we though? Did you have another a way to start that you like better than those two?
No, I don't mind it. I think we got to go Keselowski here.
Okay.
We'll play the track position game.
Certainly gonna have to.
And then we're gonna have to get one of the squirrels, I think.
Probably a couple of the squirrels.
Yeah, but if we get one of the cheapest ones, I think we'd be all right. I'm gonna throw out Daniel Hemrick.
just looking at him. Gonna put him in.
Yeah. Yeah, because interestingly enough, I think because of his experience level, I almost feel like he's a better play than the rest of these guys outside of LaJoie's experience in Cup. But the car is no different than the rest of these back markers, and he's probably run here a few more times than the rest of these guys. Where's your? I can see the wheel. I can see the wheels turning.
It's the conundrum. Do we want to get gross and then get us a really good option, or do we want to, kind of pile into the mid sevens and try and squeeze a couple?
Yeah. So what's the gross?
I mean, I'm not really sure how gross we want to get. Stenhouse is sort of interesting. Eric Jones.
What is Stenhouse's projection on roster percentage?
Like
0?
7.6, almost 8. Which is it doesn't sound like a lot. But then when you look at him in relation to his salary, actually, let's see here. Yeah, he's definitely Justin Haley's the most popular from kind of that 6K range.
Okay, what about Eric Jones?
And then it's Priest and Hocevar. Jones is interesting. I don't think he's gross. He's obviously gross, but 5,900, that opens up so much, and then we could do.
I was just gonna say, in the last 6 trips here, his worst finish is 24th, albeit in probably.
But you love Tyler Reddick, right?
Yeah, I think he's gonna be strong.
If we do Tyler Reddick, then I think we move either Jones or Hemrick out, and I think if we take Jones out, that gets us up to 69. Actually, gets us up to 7K.
Oh, I like Michael McDowell way better than Jones.
Yeah. McDowell, Suarez. Do we just do the Cindric thing? I know it's disgusting. I know he's awful. But if we trust the Fords and we think Penske can figure it out, how much
here? I'll make it easy on you. Just do it and hit submit.
All right. Done.
I can't look at it. See it? I just want to look at that line.
Disgusting. No, I wouldn't recommend anybody do that. But I just think where we're building the fact that no one's going to like him.
Yeah.
Bell, Truex, Gibbs, Barry, Haley, LaJoie, Larson, Logano, Elliott, Briscoe, McDowell, Haley, Blaney, Logano, Keselowski, Reddick, Cindric, Hemrick.
Disgusting.
Yeah, no, it's not great, but maybe that's the reason why it's going to be great. Okay, let's shift our focus. Let's talk betting odds. I will look at Caesars first. Obviously, I'll pull up Superbook and any other outrights. As always, the newsletter will be out with the final betting cards, some additional thoughts on bets and DraftKings and all that good stuff. So make sure you are checking that out. FP at aoppodcast.substack.com. The link will be in the description. While you're in the link in the description, make sure you smash the like button, then go all the way up and smash subscribe if you haven't done so. We are so damn close. Let's do a live look in on where we are at. Because we need to get to 1,000. And are the squirrels in the room with you there, Brian?
It is a It is a very, very excited bird.
Excited about the squirrel. We are 6 subscribers away from 1,000. If you are
Come on,
listening
people.
at this point and you still want to keep watching, please consider hitting subscribe. It costs you nothing. Does a lot to help us. If we can get to 1,000, we will be very, very happy. All right, Christopher Bell 3.5, Truex 425, Chase Elliott 6, Denny Hamlin 7, Ryan Blaney 7, Kyle Larson 8, Joey Logano 9. That's inside 10-1. I'm gonna pull up the tracker just so people know where we are currently sitting. Let's look at this really quick. I have Larson at 7. I'm gonna add him again at Superbook because he is 10. And I just probably dumb, but here we go. Chase Elliott top 5 plus 220. Briscoe top 4 at 28-1. Truex top Toyota 20 plus 220. I have Larson over Blaney and Larson over Logano. RIP those tickets. Barry over Tyler Reddick, a show bet, and then I added Keselowski at 18. Add Kyle Larson again because I am a glutton for punishment and if he wins, I'll be very happy. Who's jumping out for you, Brian? You're muted, Brian.
Oh, that was me saving you guys from Tiki. So I like Logano 10-1. I'll probably be adding more exposure to Reddick because his number has floated out to 25 or 30 because we did not get practice or qualifying, and I think that's far too long for somebody who's been strong on short tracks. And a couple things fall a different way. Maybe he's competing up front.
Yeah, 30 seems crazy. Behind Josh Berry, behind Gibbs.
Yeah, exactly. So, obviously I want to look at the matchup markets too, because I think there's going to be a lot of interesting matchup lines that you're going to be able to take advantage of because we didn't see cars on track for that much. But yeah, I think the two outrights still piquing my interest right now. Obviously Larson at 10-1, but I'm going to let you ride that by yourself. And then Joey Logano and Reddick are probably my two favorite numbers right now.
Reddick's interesting. Josh Berry is interesting given the names he's around. Like he's the same numbers, Chastain, Gibbs, and Reddick, which is initially kind of a mind trick, but maybe there's a reason,
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I'm gonna let you do the Tyler Reddick thing while I take Josh Berry and hate my life.
I don't hate getting exposure to Barry in some way. Like if you tend to spread out your outright bets with smaller plays, I think it's probably a good idea to grab a little bit of Barry because they will be a little bit more aggressive than other teams when it comes to trying to get a win here.
And I think maybe if the things get weird and the race shortens, he could be a benefit of that. He could also be somebody who's better to jump on top 5, find matchups, that kind of stuff. Our full betting card will have all of the matchups and all the stuff you need to know. As Chris Wormy pointed out last week, and I was very apparent, he gets better as the race goes along. He figures out what to do. He makes smarter decisions, and he improves. So I think he's a interesting ad at this point. I have no interest in Byron at 12, and maybe that's dumb. I don't know. I've been all over. The weeks I'm out on him, he wins. The weeks I'm not in on him, or weeks I'm in on him, he loses. It's kind of a weird group. Brad K at 18, I think, is still really compelling. Yeah. I think there's some opportunity this week to find some value. It's just a matter of figuring out how to get some of these longer numbers on your card and get some exposure to the better drivers that the books expect to be good. Chase Elliott, I think, as much as he did, is kind of interesting given a lot of the other names kind of where he was are basically where he was.
Yeah, and he's only priced this way because he's sitting on pole. The one guy I did want to point out, though, is I think it's very telling that Kyle Busch reopens at 50 or 60-1, which is a strong indication of what the sport and sports books think about this team right now and potentially moving forward for the rest of the season.
Yeah, if you can fade him in matchups, I think that's probably the move. I grabbed some Bubba against him prior to practice and qualifying that ended up getting washed out. I wish I grabbed some more at this point. Just seeing if there's anything compelling with his name on it.
Yeah, and I will say, because I'm at the race again, like my betting card will be obnoxiously big, and I will probably go home crying with tons of L's. But that's just got to have fun when you're at the track.
Hell yeah. Let's see. I think there's opportunity this week. So find value, jump on it. Reddick as a dog to Ross Chastain. I know Brian likes that.
Sure do.
Brad K minus 200 versus Ty Gibbs. Woo, baby.
Yeah, that was minus 115 early in the week, by the way.
Wild West. All right, Brian. Well, hopefully we get a race on Sunday. I will say I will be working at home on Monday, so I was pretty optimistic. I was pretty excited about a potential Marty Monday, but since I will actually be able to be home watching it, it's surely going to happen on Sunday and or get washed out, which is whatever. It's fine. Delay the race. It's fine. Anything else before we get out of here? Any other kind of bigger picture stuff? Anyone you're considering? Any driver you're going to look into more between now and the green flag? Obviously, as I mentioned, our newsletter will be out, aoppodcast.substack.com, with more thoughts, extra picks, our full betting card, all of that good stuff. But anything kind of as we sit here right now, you're like, ooh, I could see myself getting to this person, maybe not in the outright market, but finding ways to get exposure.
Yeah, I think the guy who won last week, again, we didn't really talk about Ryan Blaney at all this week, and he seems to thrive when he goes underappreciated. And I think coming off of a victory, more people are going to ignore him for this race because they're assuming, he's got his victory.
How crazy is that, by the way? Like,
kinda
how messed up
lax.
are our brains that we
Right?
see somebody win and look awesome? We get the next week, we go to a very similar setup. We're like, can't win 2 times in a row.
Yeah, it's not possible. It's never happened in the sport. So, like, I think there's definitely a world where we're talking Monday or Tuesday with the next time we jump on here, and Ryan Blaney is a back-to-back race winner, and nobody had exposure to him again. So I definitely think considering him in matchups or placement markets, or even in that top Ford market, which is kind of up in the air, and we're considering them to be the strongest manufacturer here, are bets that you should consider.
Very much in agreement. That is Brian Twining, live from New Hampshire. I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy the race, hopefully. Cash some tickets, hopefully. And win some money on DraftKings this week. And we'll be back next week to recap it all and get you set for the future race. Where do we go after New Hampshire? Do you have it off the top of your head?
Nashville, baby.
Nash Vegas, baby. I kind of like that. I'm very excited about some Nash Vegas. So we'll be back to get you set from a betting perspective in your feed probably Wednesday. And then obviously we'll be back again and we'll get this back in the saddle and just kind of keep this thing moving around. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy your race and we'll talk to you next time.